Hey guys and girls out there in MIDI Guitar land, it's Doily coming at you from Sydney, Australia, not Seoul, South Korea anymore. I've been meaning for a while to make a video about this application called Sessions, which is a plugin host for macOS and iOS. It loads AUV2 and AUV3 plugins on macOS and AUV3 plugins on iOS. It's only $20 in the US App Store, and it raises a pretty decent challenge, I would say, to Mainstage, and I guess it comes as an ultralight version of something like Gig Performer. I'm a dyed-in-the-wool AUM user, and I still find this to be quite a compelling application, so I thought it'd be worth having a quick look at it and how it operates. So let me dive in and basically create a session from nothing. Here we go. Now I've already got a session which I was working on before, so it's going to load up to that automatically. That's how it works. But basically what you're going to hear is straight up the first scene here. Okay, so we've got guitar and we've got synth and we've got MIDI Guitar 3 feeding the synth. And then we've got another scene here. Okay, so again, guitar and synth, and the guitar is being fed by MIDI Guitar 3. So just to kind of like keep this as clean as possible, I'm going to create a new set here, and let's just have a quick look over the various parts of the GUI. So we've got the scenes up the top here. You've got 12 scenes. You've got your plugins and presets over here on the right. You can hide that if you want to. You've got a CPU meter. I'm not sure what that is. I'm not sure what that was. Anyway, yeah, we've got the transport up here if you're using the clock. The master output. Down the bottom we have a controller section, macros, and we've got like an audio recording section. I haven't been using that, but it might be of interest to some people. You can favorite your preferred plugins and whatnot over here, and that's pretty much the basic kind of overview there. This is where your channels and plugins are going to load up. Let's just have a quick look in the settings. So the most recent update has brought us this multi-threading, so I'm just going to leave that at default at 6 threads. Pretty sure my computer can handle it. And we've got this new ability to handle aggregate devices, which was not available in the previous release, which I think is really great. MIDI ports all listed here. You can deselect any that you don't want enabled. Here's the controller section. We'll have a look at this in a second. Let me just turn my controller on. It's not connected at present. And so basically this is where you assign different MIDI CCs or PCs or whatever kind of messages you have to the macros down here. There's also the big knob down here. Select scenes 1 through 12. Okay, so I'm using program changes to do that. You've got other options to select your next scene, previous scene, and a few other things here. I would mention that tempo is not tap tempo as far as I can tell. You need to have some kind of MIDI control that will scroll through all the values. It'd be nice if it had a tap tempo. Yeah, so let's just have a quick look at these. So for scene select, I've got this allocated to program change, the channel and the device that the signals will be coming from, and it's the same for macro 1 up here. I'm actually thinking that maybe we'll change that to this guy. I think that's actually the better way to do it. Okay. All right, and that device is going to be the SY1000, which my MIDI controller is connected to. Okay, we'll get to that later. Next up, we've got the recording section. I'm not using this, but if you want to be constantly recording your audio as you're performing, you can do that. Settings for that, and then some general settings so you can have light mode if you like, or you can have dark. I think I prefer dark for the moment. And some options about how you plug in library displays. So that's pretty much all there is. I guess there's a few controls up here, like related to scenes, and like you can use these kind of things when you're setting up a new session. Okay, just keep in mind I'm on Tahoe macOS 26 here. Okay, so I'm going to build a new preset. So I like to always start with a guitar sound and then layer synth on it. Now, just to make this as simple as possible, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to shut that down for first, and I'm going to open up MIDI Guitar 3. Okay, so MIDI Guitar 3, I'm just going to confirm that it's in, excuse me a moment, the correct tracker mode. Okay, it's the first one. And the audio devices, I'm going to use S1000 in and out, and channel 1 is my DI guitar signal. So we're just going to apply that, and what it's going to do is restart the application basically, and then I'm going to go to MIDI Guitar Mini. And what this preset does is it basically creates a virtual MIDI output. So anything which enters this application is going to get sent out as MIDI. We can prove that. Just have a look at this here, and so as I play now, you can see pitch data coming out of MIDI Guitar. So alright, so now I'm going to hop over to here, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a guitar plugin. I'm going to take maybe Helix Native, and I'm going to drag that over here and drop it in like that. Easy done. Okay, and I'm just going to rename it Helix. Oops, try again. We're going to call it lead. I'm going to make a lead sound first. Okay, and so over here I'm just going to select a preset that I know has a ballpark kind of tone, and I'm going to choose input 17. Input 17 is my guitarist DI from the S1000. Now, I just want to point something out. I'm running macOS Tahoe here, and one of the new features is that you can give individual audio interfaces audio port names. So you can see here, this wasn't previously possible. You can now give custom labels to each of your audio ports. You used to only be able to do this on aggregate devices, but sadly these don't show up in this application. They show up in Logic and Mainstage and Gig Performer, and you can custom label them in Ableton Live and Bitwig, and anyway, it would be nice if we could see them, so I'm just going to mention that. But anyway, I'm familiar with the ports that I'm using, and I know that 17 is the DI from my guitar from the S1000. Okay, so I've got a track here. I'm going to turn the delay on. The first thing I want to do is I want to tie my volume pedal. Okay, so you can see that I've already connected my expression pedal, which is going to function as a volume pedal, to this big knob down here. But in order to do that, I need to go, first of all, into the volume here. I need to go to the automation section to choose position. And I'm going to have to choose knob 1. Now, I don't really have the... it's too deep to go into all the aspects of parameter automation in Helix Native, but just I think it would be enough to say that once this is done, knob 1 is now going to work for that. Okay, now the only thing is I want to use the big knob to control that, so you have to do a little bit of trickery here, and what you're going to do is double tap on that, click learn, and then you can move knob 1, and now when I double check that, we'll see that knob 1 is assigned to the big knob. So I'm going to call that volume pedal, and basically now I should have a volume pedal. Okay, so there it is. So that's great, and I also want to add a synth in now. So let me have a look at my instruments here, and let's pick something, I don't know, let's go with maybe Diva. Okay, so just drag Diva over there. The first thing I'm going to do is pick MIDI guitar out as an input port. Okay, and I just need to do a couple of things. MIDI Guitar 3 should be sending out MPE. Let's just confirm that. Yep, MIDI MPE and a bend range of plus minus 48 semitones. So over in Diva, I need to turn on MPE, and there's a config button. I think that should all be fine. I'm not going to go crazy on this. I'm just trying to get a sound basically. And let's go into presets down here. Let's choose a lead preset to match this, and what do we got? I'm just going to mute the guitar for a second. Razor. It's not bad, but clarinet. Maybe I have, yeah, I got a, oh, that's quite hot, isn't it? Okay, well, actually, I'm going to use that because I know that it has an assignment connected to the cutoff there. Okay, so I've got a synth preset and a guitar too, and so when I put them together now, I should have something. It's a bit loud. I'll need to bring the volume down. Okay, so that's a really good start, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to add the cutoff filter. I'm going to learn new, and I'm just going to move that, and now I'll click done, and so we can see that the cutoff, the frequency, has been added in here, and the only thing I want to do is just change the range on that, because I think 100 is going to be way too hot. So let's just see how it goes now. And I think that's connected to Control A. So let me just bring those down to 0 and see. Yeah, right, that's pretty good. Okay, so I've got a preset now. All right, so I can save this as a new session. Let's save it as Helix plus Diva. Okay, all right. But of course, you know, we're going to want to have more than just a single preset. So let's, for the sake of time, I'm just going to take one that I built a little bit earlier. Helix, and you know what? Let's just build it from the ground up. I just kind of like the idea of just dropping this over into here and then like adjusting it. So, you know, I will do that. So I've just basically duplicated the first scene. So they'll sound the same now. They're identical. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to more of like a clean pad sound. So we're going to call that clean, and I'm going to go over to here, and I'm going to choose a preset. You know what, I've actually got one that I've made already. Let's go to LBD. It was archetype clean. Okay, so that's already got the turn the synth off for a second. That's already got the pedal. Baked in. So that's great. I got a clean sound now, and I want to add some kind of synth to it. So I'm going to stick with Diva. I like Diva. let's choose a pad sound. Where are we? Maybe Dream Synth would be fun. Deep Space Diva, maybe? That's quite nice. You know what? Let's go with that. Let's just keep it simple. Okay, so already I've still got my pedal tied to the cutoff, which is going to function like a delay. Sorry, kind of like a volume pedal. So there we go. Now I've got two presets. Honestly, I think it would be fun to put a little bit of a washy reverb on that, maybe like something from Eventide. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to create an auxiliary. Now, first of all, I'm just going to go auxiliary 1, create. I'm going to call this reverb. And this just as an example, I'm not going to go crazy on it. So let's give that... Let's just take it up to... It'd be nice if we had a convenient kind of way to just tap and make it go to 0. Doesn't seem to do that. So, okay. All right. So on the verb channel, I'm going to go over to my audio effects and I'm going to turn off favorites and I'm just going to search for Eventide. And let's go with Black Hole. So I'm going to drag that over there and... What have I got here? Maybe we'll just go with Dark Matter. I think that's a pretty cool preset. And I'm going to put the mix at full. And I'll control the overall effect with the volume there. So let me just confirm that I need to add the auxiliary on this channel too. That's going to go to reverb. I'm going to take that up to 0. Yeah, just doesn't want to go there. There we go. Okay, so now okay, so we have two presets now and I really like the way they sound. I'm going to save that. And I just want to quickly demonstrate how using a MIDI controller that sends program change messages, I can flip back and forward between the two presets. So that's PC0, PC1. Next one takes us, I haven't got an actual scene there, but let's just hear what happens when I'm playing and I change scenes. So you can hear that the scenes continue once you change, and it gives you a effectively gapless kind of switching, and a nice kind of, a nice kind of layering of scenes. So that's one way of doing it. I'm just going to save that. So the way that I did that was with MIDI Guitar set up as, a standalone application that's feeding MIDI into the set. And that's fine, that works really well. But what if you want to actually bake MIDI Guitar into the host itself? It is possible. Let me show you how to do it. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pop back over to favorites. Get rid of Eventide there. Okay, so we can see MIDI Guitar 3 down here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab MIDI Guitar 3 and I'm going to drag it over here in front of the guitar. Now, there's definitely more than one way to skin the cat, but I'm just going to show you what I think is like basically the best way to work with MIDI Guitar as a plugin in this particular host. It will be different for other hosts. Please keep that in mind. So I have a preset that I created here earlier. It's called Sessions MG3 config. Okay. It's a pretty basic preset. It's got 2 chains out of 3. The third one's deactivated. The second one is actually active, but I can deactivate that if I want to. In fact, I'm going to deactivate that for now. And the first chain is just for MIDI conversion, pitch to MIDI conversion. Now I've already got an input here feeding Helix Native, but if for some reason I were to be using, perhaps if I changed my configuration, I don't know, my settings aren't opening. But if for some reason I wanted to just use, rather than aggregate, if I wanted to use maybe just my regular audio interface, I would still be able to access a different audio interface from within MIDI Guitar 3. And that's kind of what I have been doing prior to this application allowing you to actually use an aggregate. So that's kind of why I have it configured that way. But anyway, the point is, this still needs to allow audio to pass through. Okay, so we can actually just pull that out for now, I think. Should get a sound still. So this clear chain just allows audio to pass through. This chain, the audio never passes out, only MIDI comes out on that channel. Okay, so it's quite important to consider the channel that you're using for the MIDI output. Now, when you instantiate a MIDI output module in MIDI Guitar 3, you're probably going to want to go for direct MIDI or virtual MIDI in most cases, but not in Sessions. Sessions is a unique kind of beast in that you have to have a different instance of MIDI Guitar 3 in every single scene. And for that reason, when you save your set while you're building it, it'll work, but when you reload it, all the virtual MIDI ports will get reallocated different port numbers, and it means that when you have a specific port configured to feed a synthesizer, that will no longer work. They'll all break. So the easiest way is to use the IAC driver and create your own virtual MIDI ports. So I'm not going to use that, but you turn it on here like this, and I've already built some chains here. I call them chains, but really they're just virtual MIDI ports. So you could select, you don't select it here, you just turn it on, and any ports you've created here will then become available in MIDI Guitar 3. Let's just revert that. I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to close it. The other option is if you have an audio interface which has its own MIDI ports, then you can configure those to operate as the transport port. Now, my primary interface is an iConnect Audio 4 Plus, and it has, I think, 8 virtual MIDI ports on it or something like that. So I've just given some of those ports names. So I've got MIDI Guitar 3A here, and that's the port that I tend to use when I'm working with this now. And so all I need to do now is, once I've configured this, go over to Diva and tell it that I want it to listen to that specific port, ICA4 Plus MIDI Guitar 3A. Okay, so that's done, and now it should work. Right, so we've just taken the external standalone application out of the picture. Now, next I'm going to go over to, first thing I'm going to do is save that, because I just made a slight modification to the preset. And now I'm going to go into number 2 here, scene 2, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to drag MIDI Guitar 3 into here, and I'm going to go into my user presets, STD Basics, Sessions MG3 config. It's using exactly the same MIDI port and we're just going to do the same thing again. Click on Diva and choose the port that you want to feed it. And so now, same. Sounds pretty nice, eh? Okay, so I'm going to close that particular plugin view. But okay, so I just want to work on the position of the volume pedal there. I'm finding that when I'm changing preset, I'm not getting an instrument straight away. So what have I got here? Yeah. So scene 2 was still lingering there when the lead took over. Okay, so that's exactly what we're after. So that's it. There's no standalone application involved in that. And now we've got 2 scenes, and of course you can go through and build up to 12 scenes. I don't know how many scenes the average musician needs. I think I could probably get away with 6, maybe 4 even. But I just think this is a really nice, simple, low-cost application that's going to appeal to people a lot, I think. And I'm as a guitarist, I've worked with a bunch of different hosts and DAWs, and I would honestly say that I still prefer Gig Performer over this. But there's just something so neat and tidy and simple about this. I really like the interface, it's just kind of attractive to work with, and it's really simple. Of course, Gig Performer is vastly more powerful, but with all that power comes a certain complexity and learning curve too. This took me a very short amount of time to figure out how to use. So I'm going to recommend it. But with a few caveats. And we'll go over the pros and cons list after I've had a look at the iOS version. Okay, so here we are over on iOS. I've just jumped onto the M1 iPad, and I did pre-build this set, but I really didn't want to spend too long rebuilding everything. I think there's probably better ways to use time. So I've got 5 scenes here, and I think these should all just change pretty easily. Probably losing some voices as we go along there, but it's a bit of a different game. iOS isn't quite as advanced as macOS for audio applications. Let's just have a look at getting it to work. So the very first thing is, from my guitar track here, I'm using an application called Gig Fast Lite. I'm just going to mute the synth there, and so you can see big knob down there. My foot controller is assigned to this. I've already done all the control assignments. This is exactly the same, pretty much exactly the same as the macOS version. Okay, except that is not actually acting as a volume control. I will need to look at some solution for putting something in here that can act as a volume pedal. Maybe it's band EQ. Okay, so, all right, this is looking promising. Great. Okay, So now all right, so that's a proper EQ, but we need to get it to match the range properly. So I'm guessing probably around 80 will take us to 0, yeah. And probably as a minimum range, I'm guessing maybe 40, something like that. Yeah, that seems to work. 50 even maybe. Yeah, it's not ideal, but it's doing the trick basically. So I'm just going to have a quick tweak of this preset. What do we got here? Saturated lead. Let's try that. Okay, so we've got a lead preset and we've got volume. Okay, so in addition to that, we've got a synth track now. So how do we get MIDI guitar into here? Well, the first thing I'm going to say is you can't really use the plugin. It's not going to work. It has a different kind of back end, like compared to MIDI Guitar 3. And if we still had MIDI Guitar 3 for iOS, you might be able to use it in the same way that I was demonstrating on macOS, but we don't have that. So what you're going to have to do is have a look for your MIDI Guitar 2. And it's quite important the order you do this in. You need your host to be open first, because when you open MIDI Guitar 2, it's going to get its buffer size from the host. Okay, if you open it independently, it will give you a completely different number. It's going to be taking guitar from the same input that your guitar track is taking the input from. In my case, that's input 10. And I always use this external MIDI track. Okay, and I'm just using the regular virtual MIDI here. No need to do anything special with that. And bend range at 12. I keep the noise gate 2 or 3. Depends on your instrument. And so now I'm just going to go over to here and I'm going to choose that as my input, MIDI guitar out. Okay, there we go. You could use the hardware like I did before, but there's no need to do that. And now we should have guitar and synth together. Okay, and so finally, I guess, just to kind of balance what I was doing with the macOS side, let's just find the cutoff, add that, learn new. Okay, so we're going to have there we go. Okay, so it was the contour. Okay, so now my guitar and my synth both have volume control. Via the expression pedal. And it's the same old story. So here we have another gig fast light and we've got mood synth. Okay, so that's that one. have my pitch bend there. What happened to pitch bend? Pitch bend's on. Maybe it's set incorrectly. There we go. That should work now. There we go. Don't really like glide. But I would like to add some cutoff to that, so maybe I can do that too. Yep. Okay, cool. And let's also do the same thing that we did with, maybe just in GigFast Lite, maybe it's worth just experimenting with controlling that. No, because it's not controllable. Okay, well, I thought it'd be worth just checking. Okay, so I guess we can do the same thing with this one where we use the Apple, I think it was the band EQ. We drag that in. Okay, and so we're just going to do the same thing again here where we go learn new, remove that. It's going to say done. We're going to choose that. We're going to adjust this and this. And so we should have the same thing again now. Okay, so we don't have a full range on the Model D. What's going on there? Okay. So that's cool, but I just need a little bit more guitar. So let's go back into GigFast Lite and I don't know, we'll just take the gain up here. Whoops. That's iOS. Having looked at both of the different platforms with this application, I've got a few ideas about things about it that I do and don't like and things that I think other people may and may not like. And so we'll run through them. I'm going to start with the cons because I want to end on the positive points. There are a few more cons than there are pros, but I don't think that necessarily completely writes off the application. Okay, so number one, no MIDI controllable tap tempo. I think that's a real shame that we don't have that. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe there's a way to do it. But when I attempted to do it using the same MIDI control configuration I'd use for any other device, it simply wouldn't work. So I hope we see that in a future iteration. There's no interoperability between iOS and macOS. So if you create a preset on one, you can't load it up on the other. That's, I guess that is understandable, but I think, with more hosts allowing loading of AUV3 on macOS, just like we've had up until now on iOS, I think that that's something that would be really nice to see in the future. At this stage, there's no way to directly transmit MIDI from a track to another track. That's something you can do in most DAWs, and that would be good to see. It would certainly make using MIDI Guitar 3 a little bit easier, but I already showed you, there's ways around it. I had some issues with some AUV3s and AUV2s also in macOS not saving their parameter states correctly. And while I don't think that's the fault of the sessions application, it does indicate that it's not a bulletproof solution. So that might be worth considering. You've really got to test every plugin you use with it very carefully to make sure that it's going to be compatible. Another big one is that it doesn't have any built-in plugins like MainStage 3 or Gig Performer 5. MainStage 3 comes with instruments, effects, and scripting and all sorts of stuff, as does Gig Performer 5. Gig Performer 5 doesn't really come with the plugins, but it does have many utilities that are incredibly useful, and of course the scripting capabilities and whatnot. It also has, both of those also have the gapless switching, which is really nice. You do notice gaps when you're adding channels, when you're building configurations. That doesn't really matter because it's not going to happen when you're performing, but it's just something that might be a little bit annoying. I don't know. I had some trouble with screen recording because of that, but screen recording is not really the target use case, so I kind of tentatively called that a con. Sometimes the control assignments don't get saved in presets. I can't figure out exactly when that is going to happen or not going to happen, but I've had it happen a few times. And that thing that I mentioned earlier in the macOS section where the audio ports don't register names, which isn't, I guess, necessarily terrible if you're very familiar with the device, but it would be nice to have those available to us. And I think it would be a pretty easy thing for the developers to put in place. So regarding the positives of the application, it's a great price. It's only $20. I think it's pretty much the closest thing we have to MainStage for iOS. If you're watching this video, I'm pretty sure you'll know what I mean. Gapless switching for iOS, I've never been able to achieve that in AUM or Ape Matrix or Audio Bus, so I'm really happy to have that now on iOS. And it's got an extremely small footprint at only 20 megabytes on macOS, and I think it's probably around about the same on iOS, so it's a light application. So I'm going to leave it there. What do you think about this application? Is it something that you could see yourself working with? Put it all down in the comments. If you've got any questions, anything about the ways the application works, or using any particular guitar or pitch to MIDI kind of conversion things in it, just pop them down there and I'll do my best to answer them. I hope you all stay well, and I shall see you in the next video. Bye for now.